Alright, today we're going to be making some St. Louis style ribs. So I got my pork spare ribs. The first thing I did was I washed them off just with some water, and then I patted them dry with paper towel. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along the bone side of these. All the bones are right down here so you can feel it, so I'm going to go off of that, and I'm going to start trimming the other side of it. I'm going to feel where those bones are stopping, which is right down in here in the middle. So just to be on the safe side, I am going to trim it little by little with my very sharp fillet knife here. And I'm going to go as straight as possible, but right now I am going to just do it little by little because there is a lot of extra love on these things. So what I'm going to do with these afterwards, all these extra trimmings, is I'm going to still throw them on with everything else, but I'm going to leave them for my dog, so I'm going to leave them on the entire time so that they turn into basically like jerky, which my dogs are going to dig. So what you want to look for is pretty much as uniform of a square as you can possibly get into these ribs, because that ensures that they're going to cook very evenly, which is what you're looking for. This knife that I got is just a basic fillet knife off of Amazon, so that's where y'all can get it. Y'all can get it. Alright. And then obviously, like, there is bone and a lot of cartilage up in here from these trimmings, so when I actually end up giving them to my dogs, I will be removing the bones first. So you just want to go make these as squared off as possible. Again, you just want them to cook real even, because ribs can get real tricky depending on how much fat is left on them and overall just how much they weigh. So I am going to try and trim just a little bit of this fat off of the top. Obviously you want fat for the flavor, but you definitely want every rib to fall off the bone kind of uniformly. So right there, I can hear them hitting bone, so I'm just going to glaze it off. Alright. So that's pretty close. Just a nice square of St. Louis pork ribs. So also, if you are going to be like me and feed all these trimmings to your dogs, don't put anything on them. Don't put any seasoning, nothing like that. Okay, so on the back here, all ribs have, at least all pork ribs, I'm sorry, have a membrane that needs to be removed. This is just a little bit extra cartilage I missed that I'm getting off right now. This is not the membrane. There we go. Okay. So, all pork ribs have this membrane on the back that you want to remove. And it can be kind of tricky to get it started. So I'm just going to take a butter knife and just kind of separate this white portion from the ribs, and it will break on you, so you got to do it kind of piece by piece. I see a lot of people that will grab this with a paper towel and just pull it straight off, and that does seem to work. They rip it off all in one go, but I notice, at least when I do the paper towel rip, that it doesn't get the whole thing. Let's see, so like right there I got basically the whole bottom half. Okay, cool, but then I still have this whole top half. So what I'm gonna try to do is get in here from another angle. It is just not wanting to let go up here. There we go. All right. That was a gigantic help. Take this long. There we go. So also this big flap back here on the back of the ribs, this also has the membrane on it, attached to it. So I remove it because, one, it's gonna make the ribs cook more evenly like we talked about. And two, no one's gonna have to eat all that silver tongue on there. Okay. So now, all right, so now we have all the membrane off. That was a pain in the ass. This one was stubborn. They get like that, but you gotta remove them. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some mustard to these. You don't need a lot. You don't need too much. I'm just gonna rub it in. So what the mustard is gonna do is it's gonna act as a binding agent with the rubs that we're gonna put on here. Which, once we get cooking, it's gonna really form a bark over the tops of the ribs, which is basically, that's what you want. That's the only thing that you're doing in the first stage of making St. Louis ribs, is you're creating a bark with whatever seasonings you choose so that it holds on to it, because later on you're going to be adding moisture into the equation and you don't want it to slip off. So I'm going to use these two rubs, which I got from meatchurch.com. You can get them on Amazon, but they're twice as expensive, so I just went straight to the source. So the first thing I'm going to start with is D's Nuts Pecan Rub, and I'm going to give it a layer of that. And however much you want to put on is really going to depend on how much mustard you've put on there, because you don't want there to be a scenario where you have too much mustard and not enough rub, and then everything just gets slimy on you. So the second rub that I'll be using is Honey Hog Barbecue Rub, also from Meat Church. And this is the one where I'm gonna give a generous layer on top for sure, so that all that mustard will get nice and dehydrated. And obviously you're gonna have some that's gonna fall off when you have it in there, so you're gonna wanna give it some extra so that it can, you know, have some loss and some slippage. So now we're gonna do the same thing to this side. This is the top. Not too much. I'm gonna rub it in here. Little rub-a-dub-dub. Alright. So that should be good. So, also I already have my smoker all set to go. So what I do is I turn on my Traeger. I have a Traeger Pro 34 series. But I mean, everybody's gonna have a barbecue or a smoker or whatever. So if you have a Traeger, what you're gonna wanna do is put it on just the smoke setting for at least 10 minutes with the lid open, and then close it. And then you're gonna wanna set it to 275. If you have a regular barbecue or whatever it is you're using, go to 275. That's the magic temperature that we're gonna be using for this entire cook. So there are different recipes out there that require you to do it at like 225 or 180 for a much longer low and slow smoke, and that's how I used to do it. But I've found that 275 is a much better temperature, because what it does is it makes the fibers of the pork meat really compact together, whereas if you do a low and slow smoke, they'll really start to loosen up, and it'll kind of it'll render down to fat almost, kind of like jerky, like shredded jerky like that, which like that's cool if that's what you want, you know what I mean, if that's what you're going for, right on. But I like it to have a little bit more of a snap to it when I bite into it, and it still falls right off the bone. All right, so I've got everything ready to go, so I'm gonna go stick it on my Traeger and at 275, and I'm gonna wait for probably, I'll check it in about an hour and a half. We see you. All right, so we're set to 275 in here, so I'm gonna lay these down. And what you want to do is you want to bunch them up together. You want to kind of give them a push together to straighten out those bones, because how you set these on here is how they're going to end up cooking. And then I'm just going to set all these trimmings apart. Again, the trimmings don't have shit on them for a reason. Doesn't really matter how you throw them on, because these are going to stay on for a long time, because I turn them into pretty much jerky, so that I know my dogs won't get sick or nothing. And all right, that's it. We'll see you in a couple hours. All right, so it's been about 2 hours that they've been on here at 275. So now we're gonna check them. So the way to know if they're done pretty much is just by giving them a touch. And you shouldn't really have much on your fingers. That looks pretty good. It looks like it's barking over pretty well. Got a little bone popping out, so I'm gonna go ahead and take these off. All right, so I just took them off. They were in there for about a little over 2 hours, around there. I do got a good bark formed, so now we're moving on to the cooking and actual hydration phase. So what I'm gonna do is, I got brown sugar, I got apple juice, and I got honey. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna give a layer of brown sugar across the top. You put however much you want, man. It's up to you. Depends on how sweet you want these bad boys. That's pretty good. I'm gonna drizzle honey over the top. So this is gonna form a glaze, hopefully, on this thing. All right, so now that that's on there, now I'm gonna stick them on foil. I'm gonna go meat side down. I'm gonna pick off some of these burnt black ends off the bones and things like that. Doesn't really do much for the flavor, but I mean, I just want them to be a little bit pretty, that's all. As you can see, I'm already starting to see some bone on the back of here. So these are definitely starting to pull. So now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna hit it with some apple juice. Half a cup to a 3/4 cup is good. I know that I got plenty in there, so I'm just gonna eyeball it real quick, and then I'm gonna wrap these incredibly fast so that I don't get juice all over my countertop. So now, Pour some in there. I'm gonna get some on the top. Okay. Nice and easy. And a little bit more. Okay. Alright. And now we wrap. You are going to want to wrap these tightly. And again, you're going to go meat side down. The reason I usually go a little bit extra on the foil is just because once these bones start to pop, it's going to pop through the foil and I don't want it to make a gigantic mess. Alright, so ready to go in. Again, we're going to go meat side down on here at 275 still. I'm going to check them in 30 minutes. So they've been on here about 35 minutes. Let's check them out. Say these are pretty much done. Yeah, absolutely. Just take them. All right, so I took them off the grill there, off the smoker, at about 200 degrees, a little bit less. It's real red, which is what you're looking for. The bones are definitely pulling on me, which is that's for sure also what you're wanting. I am gonna throw just another light layer of the rub on there. Just because when you add the moisture stage, when you do add the apple juice, you are gonna have a little bit loss there. So now we're just gonna put barbecue sauce on it. I'm gonna put them back on the grill for about 10 minutes, if that, just to give that barbecue sauce a good glaze. So the barbecue sauce I'm using is the spicy PA Paw. That's that local grown stuff coming out of Coalinga. I love it, it's so bomb. This actually comes from Tana Duval's grandparents. Shout out to Tana Duval's grandparents. Not Tana Duval, but her grandparents. So I'm just gonna throw some on there. I'm gonna give it a good brushing. All right, and then I'm just gonna throw it on, like I said, for another about 15 minutes, probably 10 minutes, and just get a good glaze, and that's it. All right, we'll see you in 10 minutes. All right, so we got a good glaze going on here now, nice and red, everything's looking good. I was on the Traeger for about 10 minutes, just to let that barbecue glaze over. Now we're gonna start cutting into it. Once I get into the thicker stuff. So as you can see, I got a nice smoke ring on that. The meat's nice and compact, nice and condensed. Knife's just gliding right through because these things are ready. And now is the moment of truth. I'm gonna go ahead and bite into one of these, and hopefully it should just, this is hot, hopefully it should just slide right off. It's just pulling right off, but a lot of snap to it. You can really taste that barbecue sauce and that rub, it's so good. Oh my God. I want to eat the shit that I get from this.
and that's how you do ribs.